Like, why are we following like what everyone else is doing? And so then that like very quickly catapulted me to like leave a very well-established life, a relationship, a dance company that I helped build. I mean, our purpose is written in our soul, and there should be a clue of your childhood self in your adult self if you're in alignment. All of my greatest points in my life have not happened by planning them or thinking about them first.
And I think that is how it happens. The unknown never lets you down. The revenue went down, but the payroll expense was still there. You have to like come up against yourself with, would I be okay if I lost it all? All right, we are live. Welcome to the podcast.
Yay, thanks for having me.
So excited for this conversation. We already got started and I was like, okay, we need to pause. We need to start.
Classic. It's like you open the floodgates and you just can't stop.
All right, well, I would love to start with your story, which I'm excited because I actually don't know your story. Like I've known you for a few years and I'm finding on these podcasts, I'm like learning so much about my friends.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that. Yeah, so let's start with a little bit of your story into entrepreneurship and then developing your brand now and your method, Embodied. So this is going to be so fun. So
I know, the alignment. Yeah. I'm like trying to think about how I want to talk about my story because I can go in so many different ways. But something I feel like that I've been sitting with that is just like been this massive undertone of my entire story as it comes to today has been this constant return to my younger self. She truly has been this muse, this light that I feel very grateful that I can like feel her still. She has been this voice that has constantly been in my head in all of these big pivotal like decisions and life moments that I'll talk through in my story. But I just feel like that's really important to call out because I think, you know, as we hear and reflect on people's stories, we're like, but how did you make that decision? Or how did you know to do this? It's like, I think that my younger self has truly been the voice that has been constantly telling me what's next because, you know, we have this light, this brightness when we come into the world that I believe is like full and true. And it's who we are before like the world gets their hands on us. And my younger self was so confident, so expressed, danced her like heart out everywhere and anywhere she could. And so she has been like my North Star. Like when I was sitting in a cubicle at a corporate job that felt very misaligned, she was the one who was like, what are we doing here? Like we always wanted to do our own thing. Like, why are we following like what everyone else is doing? And so then that like very quickly catapulted me to like leave a very well-established life, a relationship, a dance company that I helped build. And I left and moved to Los Angeles where I pursued professional dancing. And then she's who whispered in my ear when she said, hey, this does not feel good anymore. Let's move into wellness. And so then I like dropped into yoga and wellness and coaching, which I'll get into. But then once I was in coaching, she was who whispered in my ear saying, hey, this is you and we're still missing movement. Right? And so she's like the one who's been holding the pen, writing my story like this whole time. And I feel like in the place that I'm in, I'm able to like bird's eye view, look back and see that it was always her. It was always that full, pure, bright energy that was writing my story. And so, you know, I want to go back into my relationship with dance because that has been truly such a foundational part of where I'm at and what I have built. My relationship with dance was really expressive based. I feel lucky in that it didn't get tarnished for me until my 20s when I took it professionally, where I kind of feel like a lot of people have negative dance experiences in their youth. I actually kind of had quite the opposite. I was very naturally gifted at dance. And so it felt like a second language to me. It was just me. I got to do it. It felt good. I got applause for it. I got praise. And it just like felt like this version of me I got to express and share with the world and share a gift. And then it wasn't until I took dance professionally when I felt all that toxicity. I felt the energy that so many people talk about. And so much of the language in dance, and I'm sure this is in other sports too, is not enoughness. And I just felt like, whether it was comparison or the language or the auditions or the way that they scanned your body, like there was so much not enoughness. And I could slowly feel like cement was filling my body. Every class I took, every audition I took. And all of a sudden, this thing that felt like this wild, expressive, free-flowing thing was cement. And so dance just started to tarnish in my heart. And I felt so heavy and sticky every time I walked into class or auditions. And so that is like what then veered me off into yoga and self-discovery, because I was like, okay, dance has been literally my identity. Like everybody has known me as like Nikki the dancer my entire life. Who the hell am I without it? So this was a huge, like pivotal part in my whole life, because I got the experience of learning who I was without it. And I got to see the gifts and the things that had always been there under the surface that I didn't give enough airtime to because I didn't have space for it. And so I just started unpacking, revisiting old things and like connecting to my younger self and traveling and being alone more and like all these things where I kind of purposefully put myself on an island so that I had no outside noise telling me how to be. And I just like slowly started feeling myself like coming back online. And I was sharing this whole journey on social media. And people started gravitating toward me, being like, how can I do this? Like, I feel like I'm living the wrong life. Like, I'm waking up in a cubicle or in a relationship or in something that doesn't feel like me. How can I find me again? And so that like very serendipitously like unraveled this coaching career where I was supporting people in their self-discovery journey, helping them peel back the onion layers to find like the core of who they've always been and find those really unique gifts that they could use for impact in the world. And I loved it. Like, I was like, oh my God, screw dance. Like, this feels so good. It was such a different feeling. But then there also came a time when, again, that younger self voice like was whispering into my ear. And she's like, hey, love, we're still not in our bodies. We're sitting behind a computer every day. And although we're serving, we're in like heart space, purpose land, it's not quite the right lane. And so I went on this like very inspiration trip, I called, to New York City. And I was like, I need to just take as much class as possible. I need to just be in my body. If I've been sedentary, I mean, I wasn't sedentary. I was teaching yoga, but like not dancing per se. So I got into a bunch of these different movement classes. And there was this one class that I took that was dance based. It was more like a cardio dance class, but it was led by a dance teacher. And so it was like kind of healing certain parts for me. And I had this like massive cathartic cry release in the class. And I feel like I cleared like physically something in that class. And as I left the class, I had my headphones in. I was like walking through Chinatown. I remember it. And this like Mumford song came on. And I'm not kidding. This is where I'm going to get woo. This is where I'm going to get nice and woo. It is almost like the gates of my crown opened and a fully coded modality dropped into my body. I like remember it as clear as day. I like could see the vision. I could feel the layers. I could feel the depth. And I went back to my like hotel room and I wrote down the method that is embodied today.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't know this.
Yes. So it was like truly almost like my life's experience, my body, my energy, my openness was just waiting for that clearing and all the things that needed to happen in my life for me to be ready to receive it.
Right.
Because I feel and believe that embodied was always meant to be my mission. Like truly my mission. And so I feel like all of the parts of my life were perfectly orchestrated so that I could get to that place where I could finally receive it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Right before I got pregnant with Sully.
Yeah, it wasn't long. Guys,
not that long ago.
The Embodied Method is
Yeah.
new. I remember talking about it. And we had dinner and I had just renamed the company. And I don't know if I'd announced it and told you. And you're like, my method's embodied. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been really interesting because I feel like embodied the method is like truly it's an entity, it's an energy that isn't me, right? So much of what we just talked about with Dr. Joe Dispenza is it's not about Nikki's method. It's like embodied is this entity that is meant to be shared with the world to support people and like remembering themselves, that core sense of who they really are. And I am just the vessel that it gets to come through.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I mean, that's the goal, I think, for everybody is if you can find that's purpose.
Yeah.
It's like what you're here to do in this life that is not about Emily Hirsch or Nikki, like the bigger thing. And I think what you're saying is exactly how you get it. It's like you can't go on a step-by-step plan of how to get there. You've got to go on the journey and the unknown and not know what that journey is. And like your journey led you right to that moment where you could put all those things together of the dance background and your coaching and be ready at that moment. Before I ask you about the method, which I want to obviously talk about, I know you talk a lot about connecting back with your child. And I remember seeing a video that you did, and it was like something you could do to connect back to that child. I can't remember.
I'm like, which one? I'm not sure.
But I want to talk about that because I think it's so true. It's like when we are born, we are full, we are whole, we are light. And I talk a lot, even in the sense of marketing, of like, what are your gifts and what are you naturally good at? What are your superpowers? And leveraging that in your marketing and how you attract other people. And I think, in any industry, business, especially marketing, it's like, no, fit in my box and do what I did to make my business successful. And that's what's taught and like take you away from what you're naturally good at. So I guess tell me more about connecting back to yourself. And do you think everybody has that inner child who can guide you like you did and they're just disconnected from it? Or do you think you're just really connected to that little girl, Nikki, who is telling you, hey, this isn't it, and how can others find that connection if they don't feel it right now?
The inner child in general is a very complex place because there's a lot of complexity in childhood and everybody's childhood is so different. And that's also where like a lot of trauma is sourced. And I think so much of like inner child work that we hear about today is more of like the quote unquote like wounded inner child, like where all of the major traumas happened. And so I think we kind of forget about like the magic inner child, which is what I talk about a lot in my coaching work, especially is like the essence of the free, expressive, creative, like that inner artist that we all are. But I think that a lot of people, depending on what your childhood was like or what your relationship with it was like, some people have like very easy access to it and some people have a very blocked access. And so I just want to acknowledge, like for people that have a much more blocked access, first and foremost, like this is where therapy is very important, or you can get support specifically to receive the nourishment that version of yourself needs so that maybe behind it you can experience the glimmer. But I also think that generally speaking, it's about finding the energy of the inner child. And so maybe through a back door, instead of going like, who was she? If it's hard to find them, go in the back door of like, what does a child like to do? Like I was just talking to one of the girls in my teacher training and she has a really hard time accessing joy. And I'm like, I want you to find the tallest hill possible. And I want you to literally roll down it 5 times. And like, it sounds so cheesy and silly, but I'm like, if you bring the energy of play and joy into your body, whatever that looks like for you, it's going to invite that energy back in. And whether it's a remembrance, it's at least an experience that you can remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's like foundational. Tactically, there's a couple things that I really love to do specifically to like uncover the gift or the magic. Number 1 is, what did everyone or anyone know you for or come to you for? It's like, I was always dancing everywhere. I was always trying to teach my friends something new. Like truly, I was like, oh, I just learned this thing. Can I teach you? Oh, do you want to make up a dance? Like I was always trying to get people into their bodies, replicate to them like the joy that I was feeling, expressing, performing. Like I was that girl. And so thinking about like, other sentiments, like some people were the nurturer or the one that like mediated or the one that was always like the therapist friend. It's like, what if people like always come to you for? It doesn't have to necessarily just be in that younger part, but maybe even in like some of adolescence, but it's that repetitive, like, what has been my thing? and maybe beyond like what other people have connected to you, but like what did you constantly want to keep doing, right? Beyond the desire of your gift, it's like what felt good for you to keep doing. Did you want to go write poetry in the corner? Did you want to go read in the corner? And it doesn't mean like I should be an author. It's just like, but what was it about that made me feel so me, right? And then, I had a lot of my coaching clients do this activity that actually my dad did for me that was really, really sweet. He gathered all of these like old like accolades and papers and projects that he hung on to. Some people's family don't hold on to this. And he like circled all of the things that kept coming up. It was like a letter of recommendation. It was like a project. It was a paper I had written, and he circled like all of the key things that kept showing up. And so it's really about finding the key themes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's something I say is for people to think about, what would people say? Oh, you're naturally good at, or you love doing as a kid. And like you said, it doesn't mean, you have to be an author, but it's like, okay, how is that relevant in today? Mm-hmm. And I think oftentimes we are still chasing that thing that we felt so aligned with as a kid.
Yeah.
Like we want to be back there.
Yeah.
And the more you can tune into that in your business and your life. Yeah. And do you know how much happier adults would be if they just played like kids a little bit more?
Truly.
Like really, we just take everything so serious, myself included, in seasons where I'm like, it's not that serious.
Yes.
Like the point of this is to have fun.
Well, I think that's like the beauty of being a parent is like, we're getting a second chance to like, are you gonna engage and play with your kid, or are you gonna sit off to the side? Are you gonna numb out on your phone while he's at the park? Or are you gonna go down the freaking slide with him? Like, I'm always like asking myself that. I'm like, do I need to be this adult, or can I engage even more so that I can invite that feeling back in? Because that's what it's really all about, is like kids give us kind of a second chance to be kids if we let ourselves.
For sure. I think dads have an easier time with this. Have you recognized that?
Yep.
Yeah. Like my husband can just go right in. I mean, he is the play, run around the house. And I see that a lot with dads. But for some reason, women take on the like, I'm in charge of the schedule and the bedtimes and the meals, and then lose that. And I think a little bit like that is our role. Naturally, we're good at that. But I mean, I had a hard time playing with my kids in the beginning, and I had to find a way that I would want to play with them, because I can't be the Lego guy. Like, hey, yeah, my mom. Yeah, I can't do the Barbies and the Legos.
Yeah.
But I can play at the park. I can run around. Yeah. So not also forcing yourself to do like the Lego plays. I don't know if you have a hard time. Well, Sully's still young.
He's still young.
Like, once he gets to like the pretend guy play, and then they also are like, no, you have to do it this way. You have to say this exact thing.
See, I think I would love that. I'd be like when I read him stories, I am like a full-on like puppet show. Like I enjoy that part. I feel like Gunther is more of the physical in the play sense. But I think that that's also such a good point, even when connecting to your inner child, is like finding the play lane that speaks to you. If it's imaginative, if it's physical, that's really important.
Yeah. You're making me think, when I was a kid, I used to play teacher.
Oh yeah.
And so, and now I'm like teaching webinars, but I would have my neighbor, she was like 3 years younger than me, and we'd play all the time, but I'd force her into like a full school day. Like 7 hours with like homework.
Oh my God.
I'd had a whiteboard in my room, and I'd like teach and give her homework. Well, it's funny because I'm in a way, I'm teaching today.
Yeah.
And leading in that way. And I loved that.
But and I think that really is, when you look back, it's like, I mean, our purpose is written in our soul, and there should be a clue of your childhood self in your adult self if you're in alignment, I believe. And if it's not, then that might be a sign to reassess, because so much of life is like giving us these micro deviations away from ourselves to follow society, right? And I think that like, even when I think about movement, and I don't remember if I already said this, but like every single child moves and expresses through their body, through play, running, dancing. Every kid dances and like expresses through their body with such ease. And then we put kids in sports, and we put kids in art forms that are great. they're more discipline based, which have their greatness, more structure. But that's also the moment that the magic of movement dies, because it creates a conditional relationship where you are trying to now put your movement in a specific box to look a specific way to reach a specific goal. And then that's what movement becomes for the rest of your life, this conditional relationship. When there are benefits, obviously, of disciplined movement, and, you know, working out and getting physical results is an important part of our process. And we lose the movement to express and feel free very quickly. And so that is like part of the nature of Embodied, and why so much of like the inner child stuff is so alive and all of my work is because coming back into our body to express and to feel without needing a result or a condition around it is so important.
I think that's really important piece. And I think when I was growing up, I went quickly into structured sports for sure. And I've had to kind of unlearn that through dance the last few years. Because I think dance is probably one of the best ways to allow yourself to have unstructured movement. And that's a good thing to keep in mind with kids too, because they do naturally do it. And then you tell them, oh, we're going to go for this goal. We're going to, you know, my kids are in soccer, jiu-jitsu, all of it's structured. I wanted to talk about, before we move on, you know, finding this, connecting back to your purpose as it relates to you as a child. And I think if I was listening to this like a couple of years ago, I'd be like, I need the steps. And so I want to say that you're not going to find it when you're looking for it very I need to find my purpose. It has to come through trusting the unknown a little bit. And like your experience, I mean, you weren't like walking, you know, through New York going like, all right, I need my next thing to drop in right now. Like, give it to me. It always, anytime I've had such a profound code or intuition or hit drop in, it's always when you don't expect it.
For sure.
Always. And so you can't make it this, like, I have to find this, like, and white knuckle it and grip onto it. And I just know I would have done that. Like, I would have listened to this and been like, well, that sounds really cool. I want to have this code, this method drop in. And so I'm going to chase that. And the point is, it's found through connecting back to yourself and the energy of the child and being present and being in alignment. And so if you make the goal to be the process of connection with yourself and that energy, you will end up having more clarity around that purpose. And yeah, I think it's easy to get, we're so goal oriented, especially entrepreneurs and humans. And so it's like, okay, we make the goal, like I've got to find my purpose, and you will never find this bigger purpose or whatever you're looking for by focusing on that.
Right.
And it's counterintuitive, but the journey and the process of just kind of trusting that you're on the right path and it's the alignment with yourself. It's why I say the truth is within, and you already have the answer. For sure. Like that answer for the embodied method was probably waiting for a long time. Yeah. It's been there. It's already there. It's just, for sure. You had to have those experiences and connect back to it and be open enough for it.
Because I think so much of our lives we're conditioned for things to tell us who we are that are outside of us. And so it's easy to look out and try to find it through others and doing and things. But I think that like what I've learned is that, yes, it's like it's coming back to the self, but it's like turning up the noise. Because when you create this like frequency inside of you of alignment, let's say, or like of really feeling your true self, that's when you start to feel the deviation and then be able to say, that doesn't feel good. How can I come back to myself? And then you start getting more precise with your decisions, even down to the micro level of like, coffee doesn't feel good in my system anymore. I need to like try to sub it out. But I think that most importantly, it's like this curiosity of always coming back to the sense of it's a feeling. It's feeling based. Everything is feeling based. And so that's why getting into movement and play and like getting into things that you're actually physically feeling are so important, because that is the anchor of every micro decision that you make that makes your life, right? So I think that turning up the noise of your inner light your inner magnet is what's going to support you in making those tiny little shifts, because it's not big moves per se. It's a lot of micro movements.
And the consistency of making it a daily, honestly, like messy practice. Like you're not going to just overnight be like, well, I'm very connected to myself now.
Totally.
It's like there's a lot of undoing and like frustration that can come up with it. And, oh, this isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I can remember that is literally the point.
Mm-hmm.
As we were talking about, I just came off the Dispensa meditations and the week long. And in the beginning, I was like, well, I suck at meditation and I'm not doing it right because I'm getting distracted and I'm zoning out. And then I was like, no, that is the point.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the masters are going to zone out and think about random things. And it's like how fast can you come back and training yourself? And that it's just like appreciating the process and the journey is everything.
Yeah. And being curious, like trying things on, like even for you, like your typical state is to want to achieve. And so trying on, what would it feel like to just allow the meditation to actually like work for me? Being curious. I think curiosity is also very like inner child related, but is one of the things that actually allows for us to find that alignment at all.
Yeah. And I mean, letting go of the judgment too. Because in order to be curious, you're letting go of a concept of right and wrong. Mm-hmm. And you're going, okay, what if there was no right and wrong and I just sat in this, played with this, saw what happened? And I think that's easier for some than others. I think that's probably easier for you. I get that for you. Like you're good at being curious and like, what if? And I'm like, I need to do it right.
Right. Yeah.
And I've done a lot of undoing on that. But even, going into meditations or somatic work, it's like, I want to give the right answer. It's just so programmed in me. And so the acceptance without judgment is kind of that first step. And then you can, do that. All right, let's talk about the method, Embodied.
What do you want to hear?
Let's hear it first. Just give me an overview of it.
Yeah. So it's a mat-based movement class, and it's all rooted in contemporary dance. So by nature, the movement is very fluid. It's very heart-opening. It's very expressive, and it's meant to be emotive. So a lot of fitness and movement is very structural, very linear. And so this is getting people to move differently, not only to experience themselves differently, but to also get into like different tissues, different muscles, which is where stuck emotions and stuck like things live. And so really meant to invite people into a full spectrum human experience, because we go into the depths where we, like a lot of people cry, especially the first time they take the class. We are also like activating this empowered female inside that just wants to like crush it. And then we're also like shaking our ass and having a dance party. So it's like honoring the full spectrum human, and it not being about, I need to learn the moves, I need to look like you, how can I be on the beat, and more about, how do you want to move? And I think that that's a really important piece. Is it's a remembering. It's not a learning, it's a remembering. It's a remembering of who you are, remembering how to move like you, and witnessing when you're trying to deviate and be like somebody else and be like, this doesn't feel like me. Okay, so then shift it. And so there is so much permission in the modality. I'm providing a structure, I'm providing a journey, but nothing has to be followed. Everything gets to be an offering.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
And I've been able to take, I don't know if I've taken a full class or not, if you consider it.
Micro.
Yeah, it's the micro. I need to go to a full class.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically a dance class, but a very specific, unique method that you've created.
Mm-hmm.
And before we were talking, we're going to talk about that conversation we were having, but you were saying you start with this and then you take people through this next piece. Will you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. So I want to also just like share, it's a full blown, like full body experience, but I don't like calling it like a workout because that's not why people come to the class. Like I want people to leave being like, oh, I feel like myself again. I don't want them to be like, oh, I sweat so hard and burn so many calories. That's not the point. Right. So this is a full self-discovery experience through way of movement. And I really bring them on the ground, and we like arrive, we orient, we get present, we slowly build the structure so that people can feel safe to explore movement that may feel familiar or unfamiliar. And then we start getting into the heart, and we start like slowly titrating ourselves into some bigger, more expressive movements. We take our time, we're opening the heart space, we're getting fluid energy, and just like inviting a new way of being in that automatically is laced with a letting go, because you can't be fluid without letting go.
Mm-hmm.
So we build the energy, and then we build some strength and grounding, and we get some repetition and rhythmic things going. So people are kind of like dropping into a pocket. They're finally starting to get out of their head. They're finally like, oh, I can feel this. Like, oh, we're repeating this over and over. Oh, I can kind of sink in a little bit more. So building the confidence in the person to say like, yeah, you can do this. And then we work our way up to the peak, which is the flush. And it's essentially 2 movements we just repeat over and over to a really powerful song. And it just automatically just like shakes shit up. It brings things to the surface. It clears energy, and it just allows people to really truly feel this like aliveness. And after we flush, I stand them in stillness so that they can truly just like savor the aliveness that they're feeling. And we so quickly move out of discomfort, and for them to just like sit in the humanness of who they are. It just feels like every single layer or should or, pressure just falls off their body in that moment, because they are so connected with themselves. And then from that point forward, we're like integrating that energy through, a variety of different movements and structures. And then we kind of end with a celebratory dance party that's a little bit more of a free for all. And everybody just gets to truly celebrate like all that came up for them, all of the versions of themselves, and all of the people in the room that are sharing this experience, because everybody is having their own profound experience because other people in the room are allowing themselves to go there too. And so the journey is clearly fruitful, but it's different for everybody every time. It's kind of like you show up as a different version of yourself. So you get to move through whatever wants to come through you. It doesn't need to be prescribed. It just gets to be, because the body is always waiting for you to like give it the mic.
I mean, ultimately, it's like everything we've talked about up until this point of connecting back to yourself and that inner child. It's like you've created a method to be able to do that and get out of your head and into your body. That is a mix of like dance, meditation.
Yeah.
I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me about the process of like bringing this to life. As an entrepreneur, you had like the coaching business. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's a pivot. Mm-hmm. And I know we knew each other during then, and you guys like, I saw your post the other day too, like both you and Gunther pivoted at the same time, had a kid. Of course it happens that way.
Yeah. I'm like, go, fire hose.
But what was it like? Like, so you had the download to bring this to life, and it was so clear. What was it like to bring it to life? Like, and actually choose, like, I'm going to host my first class, or what did that look like?
Well, so what's really interesting is like, I got pregnant like 1 week after.
Of course.
So I was pregnant with a new idea, pregnant with life. So I had like all of this creator energy alive in me. And I think that the thread and the through line of Embodied being such a different version of the work I was already doing with coaching was what made it feel like such a easeful transition, because it's still self-discovery. It's still like the undertone of reconnecting to yourself just through way of movement. And so that part of the transition of like kind of the brand, if you will, and what people online knew me as was pretty seamless. I think that I also had been teaching yoga for 7 years, and then I taught and choreographed dance for 10 prior to that. So it was really just kind of like a blend of all the different hats and identities that I have worn, but now just falling all under one umbrella. And I was still coaching when I built it, but I just started like hosting classes, and I'm just like thinking back to like the first handful of classes that I taught in these studios that had terrible sound, and like I had no mic, and like it has seen many iterations from an experience standpoint. But I think that is the thing that I've recognized the most is like the modality has pretty much stayed true, but the experience that surrounds it is what's really important. So I'm in a studio right now where it's like, it has cool lighting. I have a mic. It feels like a container. So that is like also a really big part of the experience, is the container that it gets set in. And so I just honestly had to like try it on in a lot of different locations and see how it fit. And then I'm also in the process of developing an app, because I tried on, again, I got curious, truly. This last summer, I was like, I wonder what it would be like if I created a moving meditation audio file. So like a daily practice, people are putting their headphones on and it's like a 10-minute thing. I teach them some repetitive movements. I play some kick-ass music and give them a guided journey while they're repeating the movement. And so I created a mini program around it, which very similarly tied into like, my coaching business. And people loved it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. So this is a new arm of the embodied mission. Is it gets to not just be a class experience, it gets to be like a literal lifestyle, like a practice. And so I've been also developing this moving meditation app on the side as well. And I feel like, combining my course creation skills and my coaching skills, like it's just very seamlessly fallen into place, just taking different form, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And now you can reach a lot more people than limited to in-person classes. This is why I wanted to know this story, because of course, when that idea dropped in, it's not like you had the plan of how it's going to roll out.
No.
And like, that's the key, is that you had the courage, really is what it takes. And some people have that more naturally than others. But I think you got the message of it and you're like, I have to bring this to life. And that required you pivoting a business. Obviously a lot of unknown, from financial to like, how will this work, and how well will it work? And then learned through just doing it. Through the messy first handful of classes where like literally the only way that you could have learned, oh, I want to have it in a studio with this lighting and with this mic, is through the experience of doing it. And totally. I think that's just so important for entrepreneurs to understand, is you can have a vision of, I want to bring this method to life or have this impact but you will not have the manual on how to do it. All you have to know is the next step.
Right.
And the beginning of it is going to be humbling. Like even when I brought this podcast and even now it's like there's improvements can be made, but like the first episode, my camera's like overheating.
Sure.
Shutting off in the middle of the interview, and there's just different things, and you just got to walk through the mess of it, and it's humbling because your ego's like, oh, like, embarrassed about something or that didn't go as well. And the reality is most people don't care nearly as much as you do about it. But I just think highlighting that journey is so important, because you were willing to go, I have the idea. I don't know what it looks like to fully bring it to life. Yeah. And who's to say in a year, 2 years from now, what it's going to look like? Yeah. It's going to evolve. You're going to get the feedback, the ideas, the curiosity, and it's going to continue to evolve and grow. And the feedback from your customers taking it and what they want and what they like. And again, back to like committed to the process with an intention and a vision of your impact, but not being tied to everything being perfect to take the next step, or even needing to know the next 10 steps. You just need the next 1 or 2.
Yeah. And I just had like a really empowering come to Jesus moment with my app company, where I was trying to really have everything perfect for my app in its first launch. I wanted like a gorgeous, very on brand, like photo shoot and video. And I wanted like all these like custom coding and all this stuff. And I had like a health thing this year that really bumped. I thought I was going to launch my app in March. It is now May. So I'm just like trying to come to terms with like a V1 is going to be fine as a V1. Get the product out there. Get reactions and responses. You can always make better. You can always tweak. You can always revise. And I kind of feel like that has been a really big point for me in this pivot. And I'm learning an entirely new like business model. Like coaching is very high ticket. I'm building an app and a class that is very low ticket. So trying to understand just like the structure is a lot of trial and error, and a lot of trust, and a lot of trying things on and seeing if they work or fail, right? Like I'm even in the process of doing a teacher training right now. And I've had some people in other states who may want to license my brand. So I'm getting offered these opportunities of business expansion that I've never touched. But I'm also just like trying to be curious about how it can work without losing the integrity of the brand too quickly. Yeah. Right? There's that balance of like wanting it to be good, but not perfect. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And it's a fine line. I feel like you walk that, and I think the more your brand grows, the more you want the first thing to be good. right?
Totally.
Like when I launched this video podcast, it's like I'd done 700 episodes. So it had to be good enough for me, you know, to launch it, but not perfect. And, you know, making those decisions, I think it comes back to going back to yourself and then going, all right, where is this coming from? If I am feeling like it's not perfect enough to launch, is it my ego? Or like, really, if I do launch this, is it going to be a good product? And people are going to get the end result that I'm promising and they'll probably not even notice the things that I'm noticing.
Right.
So I'm so close to it. And there's just such I'm like, again, off the Dispenza event. So I'm like, still the unknown, right?
Yes.
But there's like such a beauty in that I want to point out, because you didn't know when you got that idea, which, how old Sully?
18 months.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, less than 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. Or
about
a little
2
over.
years ago that you got the idea. You didn't have the idea and go, I'm going to have classes in Austin, teacher training, and an app and all these things. None of those could have come to you if you weren't open to the possibilities.
Yes.
And not so tied to this is exactly how it has to go. And I'm speaking from the old me, especially 3-4 years ago, oftentimes would become, let's white knuckle it exactly how I think it should go. Mm. And when you do that, you miss so much possibility of the unknown.
Yeah. And I feel like as I'm reflecting, all of my greatest points in my life have not happened by planning them or thinking about them first.
And I think that is how it happens. The unknown never lets you down.
Like, I had no idea I was going to move to LA until a month before I did. You know, it's like, I think, you know, a lot of things with like 5-year plans and not vision boards per se, but like specific manifestations. I'm like, the magic is really becoming that aligned center and just making most of your decisions and moves and conversations come from that place. And then it comes to you. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like sometimes this is maybe a biblical thing, but Gunther told me this story, I think it's from the Bible, where someone's in a boat and he's like asking God to be saved. And he sends him a lifeboat. He sends him a rat. Like, he sends him all these things and then he ends up dying. And he's like, God, what the hell? Like, he's like, I sent you 5 opportunities. And he's like, well, I thought it was going to look like this.
Yeah.
And so I think that oftentimes is life, is like, we think life is going to deliver us the miracle or the gift in a certain way, and it looks completely different.
Every time I think it looks completely different.
Every time.
Like never does it happen how we think it does.
Exactly.
Because we can't perceive most of what's happening around us and know that. That's so funny. They told that story at the event last week. Yeah, they used it as an example to someone's question. I love it. You have to focus on the feeling that you're trying to get to, right? Yes. Like, that's your intention. That's what you're trying to manifest, whatever you want to call it. If you move to, it has to happen on this date and this way, that's the known.
Totally.
That's the 3D. That's what you want to get out of, because that's not where the magic happens. And it's a practice, because the reality is our brain wants the known. It's wired for predictability. It's wired to be like, I need to know the time, the day, like the steps. And it's just such a beautiful practice to trust that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To trust the unknown and actually start to be like, I'm so excited to not know.
Yeah. Well, I think like the undertone of all of that, why we crave known, is because what we're really craving is safety. And so I think it's finding safety in ourselves instead of it always having to be from achievement, where we can actually like find the safety inside to actually be able to receive the unknown. Because I think when people have a disconnect from like, but the unknown, like I need the control, it's because they don't feel safe somewhere. So I feel like that's like step 1, is really understanding like, where do you not feel safe and why, and how can you feel safe in your own body, in your own life, so that you can open up your trust muscle, right?
Which I think also ultimately having a connection to whatever you call it, God, universe, source, creates the safety, because you realize, I'm not on my own.
Amen.
Like, I don't have to do this all by myself.
So true.
I've never had to do it all by myself, like silly human.
Doing all the heavy lifting. Yeah, what was I thinking?
Why are you making it so hard?
Yeah, seriously.
You got it wrong.
Yes, that's so true. You're not alone. Because it can feel really isolating, especially in just like the sticky, pivotal transitions of life, you can feel really like, why am I experiencing this? I feel like so isolated. Like I even felt that way a little bit in my motherhood journey. Like I had so many friends who had babies around me, and I was like the only one that had a really traumatic entrance into motherhood with my birth and just like my postpartum experience. And I just felt like isolated in this group of people because there was such a different environment. I was like, why am I not feeling this way? And then I was like, I need to find my safety and my connection in myself to feel supported, not necessarily directly from these people, but from up above. I need to feel like, oh, God's got me. I'm safe in this container because something in this is really healing for me, you know?
Yeah. I want to talk about motherhood. So maybe
Let's dig in.
into that. Yeah. What would you like to share just on your journey? You're so great at content. And so I love your vulnerable, like really great shares that you share on social media. And I know you've been open about your journey to motherhood. Yeah. I think that's a gift of yours. Like you're talking about your coaching business, you shared your journey of like finding yourself and like pulling those lessons. That's definitely something you do really well. So how was the experience into motherhood?
Rocked my world straight up. You know, I think some people like have this very maternal, nurturing, like I've always wanted to be a mom energy. And I think that the transition from not being a mom to being a mom is a little bit more seamless. And I feel like I wanted nothing to do with children. I specifically taught teenagers dance. I didn't want to teach kids. I didn't babysit. I wanted to be around like my age group or older. Like I wanted to just stay in that lane. Children to me felt like, whoa, y'all, like this feels crazy. And my sister was always the child whisperer. So I was like, you've got this. And so I feel like, you know, although my sister has 3 kids and I've spent a ton of time with them, like being a parent and being an aunt is very different. For sure. So when I had my son, I just felt, beyond, I lost a lot of blood in my birth, and then my son didn't sleep for a year. So like all of my levels were very low. I was operating off of like true empty and a fried nervous system for the entire first year, while also being like, I'm in kindergarten of learning how to mother. Like, I think that certain parts of motherhood feel very natural, like obviously like the love, but there's a lot of it that I literally felt like I was in school. I was like, I don't know what the hell to do. I'm supposed to trust myself. I'm supposed to follow my intuition. My body is rocked. I can't find that. I don't know what to do. There's so many different things out there. So I feel like the first year felt so messy, like truly so messy and challenging. And I remember being with one of my girlfriends and she was like, oh man, this has been the best year of my life. And I was like, well, this has been the hardest year of my life.
Did you say that or did you just go?
I told her later.
Yeah.
Because I had to like process her saying that. And I honestly felt so much shame and guilt. And then I just was like, she also had her own trauma. She had a hard time getting pregnant. I think everybody gets handed difficulty in parenthood somehow. It just looks different. And mine was really like postpartum. My first year postpartum rocked me. And I think that it was so important though for me to feel messy and for me to like learn from the ground up how to mother and it feel unnatural and it feel rocky, because I feel like where I stand today, like I feel so anchored in who my son is and who I am as a mom. And like the trust was so, it was built. It didn't just snap for me overnight. Like it was truly a built muscle of learning how to be a mother, of healing my nervous system, of learning to trust myself and getting rid of the comparison. So I feel like a breath of fresh air right now in my life because I had to go through that, but it was such a necessary growth because it also like bled out into so much else in my life. It got me so clear on what was a hell no and a hell yes in my life in so many ways. And it forced me to get so laser focused with my time because I'm like, I want to be a present mom. So I'm going to be present with my son. And then I'm going to have containers where I do my work. And then I'm going to have containers where I pour into myself. And it's like, it just forced me to really grow up. Yeah. And I know you know that.
Yeah, for sure. On the time, it's like once you have kids, you're like, well, what did I do before with all my time?
Literally embarrassing. Yeah. I'm like, who did you think you were? You could have built 4 companies.
Right? It's just the perspective of once you have to be like, I only have this window to work.
Yeah.
You somehow get it done in that time.
Yeah.
And you're so much more focused. And like you said, you know your priorities and know what's a hell yes, what's a hell no, and what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
And it is a gift. I think there's a reason I had kids so young.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of those, obviously there is a reason, but I think one of those reasons is that it instantly had me build a business that had some sort of balance to it. Like, because if I didn't have kids, I probably would have just worked the 12, 14-hour days because I loved working.
Totally.
Why not? And it allowed me to have other values to build the business around and my time. And I definitely wouldn't have done that before.
For sure. Kids. For sure.
Did you struggle with the loss of freedom after having Sully?
Yeah, I did. And I think that, I mean, we live away from family, right? So we have had to hire any sort of help and support. But I think that it wasn't until like we got a nanny that like I started to feel this like, oh, I have a little bit more time. Like I just get to look at it differently. I think from a freedom perspective, I definitely have moments where I'm like, I wish we would have traveled the world. I wish we would have done all this stuff. But I think that there is such a beauty in the season that we're in. And I think like finding ways to include him in certain things or finding ways to receive support for certain things, it's just like a perspective thing. Cause I'm like, if I really sit and think about, you know, how complicated things are, it's just going to make me feel bad. And so I've always really tried to frame it as like, can he be included or can we pivot or can we get support? Because this is life for like the next 18 years. And I think it's also really beautiful to be able to bring your kids into experiences, even when they're not going to remember it, because it's a different kind of special for you as a parent to receive them in an adventure that you take them on, you know?
Yeah. And that's the concept, I think, of like having it all. Like you don't have to give up. I mean, sure, things might look different, but you don't have to give up who you are when you become a parent. And when I was, 19 and pregnant, people would be like, oh, you'll never travel. You won't have any experiences. And I was like, why? Like, what if I want to travel? And so we brought, Ollie when he was 18 months, that was my first, to Europe, went to 6 countries and just like, why can't you do it? But I did struggle with just the loss of freedom over my time initially. Like, well, I was also really young, but it was like, oh my gosh, I went from a life where I could do whatever I wanted all day and like I was in charge of my time to now a human needs me to survive every 2 hours. And so I think for me, 0 to 1 was the hardest for that reason.
For sure.
Just of like, there is nothing that can prepare you for that reality of you now are someone's life depends on you. And
truly,
I mean, everything changes overnight. So it just takes that time. And I think, I'm similar where we lived by family for a while, but then moved away, and my parents have a very busy life and career. And so all my help has been paid.
Totally.
In the beginning, I didn't have money for that. And so it is challenging, and it speaks to, I think, that we're not meant to be doing this so alone or with just 2 people. And I feel so fortunate today that, I mean, I've got a full-time nanny. I call her my wife. Like,
it's amazing.
I don't know what I would do without her. In the beginning, I didn't have that. And it's hard when it's just a mom and a dad. It is plus business, almost impossible. Not impossible, but a hard season. And then it's a season and you get out of it. But I think, we are meant to be doing this in community for sure. And I realized that after having kids, like, wow, we are meant to have community of women supporting women through this.
Yeah. And I feel like that was really helpful, is being around more moms for me in like that early season, like just being surrounded by people who were in it too. I feel like although we're not taking care of each other's kids, it's like we're able to just be in the season at the same time. And I think that just really helps and opens up perspectives. I feel like I really just like banded to this group of moms because I was like, I can't relate to the people who aren't having kids right now because I'm like so deeply entrenched into this new chapter. Like I need to be surrounded in conversations about what is going on. And so I think that it's so important to have a community around you who is going through it, while also, receiving, like you said, the support and knowing when to ask for help. I had my son full time for the first 10 months and I was so like desperate for some time to myself. And I was like, all right, I'm calling it. I need help. I finally need some real help here. And it's like, that is like when everything shifted. I feel like I became such a better mother when I asked for help.
For sure. Me too. Like I am such a better mom with support in the house. Like I couldn't imagine myself right now without my nanny. There's no way.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the biggest perspective shifts or lessons that come to mind just in the last few years with Sully and becoming a mom, business?
Man.
Because you really are good at like you've got a problem that you're facing and then you kind of overcome yourself. Like you're like, you posted the other day about the no complaining challenge, just different things that you're really good at, like sitting with yourself and going like, all right, here's the perspective shift, or here's what we need to do to make a shift, make a change.
I don't know if this is answering your question, but it's like what's bubbling up. So I'm just going to talk. But I feel like my greatest teacher and takeaway from this chapter of my life is that I think that Sully is a version of me. He is a very specific version of me who is highly emotive, very bright and expressive. And I witness myself wanting to respond to him in the ways that my parents did, that I'm unpacking forever, of like, my emotions matter, acknowledge them, like all this stuff. Like I'm witnessing, I feel like I'm healing so much by having compassion for my parents, specifically my mom, in how she responded to some of my big explosive emotions and like ways of being. I'm also learning how to rewrite my own like automatic response and learn how to actually respond to him in a way that's healing for him and healing me in return. So I feel like I've been given this child who is so incredibly similar to me, and I'm witnessing the complexity of it, and I'm seeing how hard it is, and I'm seeing how beautiful it is, and it is just like, it is my mission to support him and allow for, the classic saying, like, your parents' ceiling is your floor. Mm-hmm. And so I'm standing on my parents' ceiling as my floor, and now I'm doing that for him, right? It's like I need to rise to a place where like I'm working through what was passed on to me so that it doesn't happen to him and that he gets to stand on a new ceiling, So I feel like that has been my greatest like lock in for this whole season that I'm in, is that I'm getting an opportunity to like heal everything.
Yeah. I mean, our kids really are our greatest teachers, and for sure brought to us for a reason. I feel like that, especially with Ella.
I was going to say.
Yeah, Ella is they're all my good teachers, but Ella is like me. Mm-hmm. And I find myself getting triggered by the things that she does, just like me.
Totally.
They're very like reactive, and yeah, it's so interesting, but I mean, it's so beautiful, like to do the work. And did you have any, did you hire anybody, get any support in terms of like therapy or somatic work or anything to work through the birth?
Yeah, I went to a therapist for a little bit, but that actually just felt like it was digging too deep. I feel like I needed to do a lot more nervous system work. So I was seeing an acupuncturist for a while who I would go like every other month, and Cindy at Alive and Well.
Oh, uh-huh.
her sessions are like intuitive massage and acupuncture, so it just felt like this trifecta for the body. But I did a lot more like body based, so I feel like the acupuncture was super supportive. I started taking yin and like slower things, which are hard for me to do because I'm such a mover. But I kind of tried to find the opposite. I tried to find more stillness and more peace, less talk, less emotion, because I felt like I have no problem talking and expressing. I think that I needed to just like truly like heal my nervous system. And then I will say I did a closing of the bones ceremony maybe like a couple months postpartum. And that was really just a powerful closing of the chapter that was like that birth portal. So, yeah, those are the things. They were all very gentle. Because I think that like my body was shot. I didn't need to revisit. I needed to like come back to center, like hold myself.
What's a closing of the bones ceremony so people know?
Yeah. So I believe it is deeply rooted in like the Mexican culture. And it's essentially a ritual and a ceremony where, you know, your bones are so opened and exposed through birth that it's this symbolic closing of the bones and like closing of that fourth trimester and almost putting you into this cocoon of like rebirth. And so, you know, we did this whole beautiful ceremonial conversation, and then they did this like bath, which was actually so beautiful. They like dumped like water and like blessings over me. They put this like steam container around me. So it was like literally like I was in a cocoon of warmth. It was just like putting yourself almost as the baby, like in a womb being nurtured. And then they wrap you up in all of these cloths really, really tight. And it's like this, you know, healing songs and all of this stuff. And then you set your intention and then they unravel you. And it just is like this rebirth. And it was so beautiful. And I feel like it was a really big pivotal part in me being able to like breathe again, just because it hit all of the right energies. You're cracked open, you're mothering, you need to be mothered also in the process. And it just kind of like brought me back into myself that way. It nurtured me.
That's beautiful. I didn't even know of that. That was here in Austin?
Yeah. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
They're all a little different, but that one was like 4.5 hours long.
Wow. And then what about you as an entrepreneur and that shift after and like what's next for you? And, you know, you've got super focused after you have a baby and like you had to kind of transition to that. But how did you navigate that?
Well, I feel the raw, authentic answer is that my nervous system was still shot when I went full-fledged back into entrepreneurship. Which is
how long was that actually after you had Sully?
It was like that 10-month mark. It was like when I got my...
So you took about 10 months off.
10 months off, pretty much. I mean, I did like a couple, my moving meditation programs here and there, but it wasn't like I was like committed, you know?
Was that intentional? Like, did you say, I'm going to take 10 months off? Or did you just kind of feel it afterwards, like when you were ready?
Yeah, I just kind of felt it because I was in such a raw state and I didn't feel like ready to like fully dive in, and everything was still like forming. But when I was like, oh, I've got a nanny. Okay, I want to feel like myself. So I'm going to go back into entrepreneurship. My nervous system was still shot. And that's like when I had this like huge like health episode where my body just like shut down. And that's when I like did a lot of my nervous system healing where I was like, oh, okay. And that also allowed for me to enter into entrepreneurship a little bit gentler and a little bit more calculated, in the sense that I was like, okay, I'm going to put X amount of time toward this, X amount of time toward that. And then I need to take a break, right? It's like I just had to really balance myself before really like flying with it, which I feel like I'm in a place where my head is kind of down and I'm flying with things. But I just had to be really, really careful because as you pointed out, like now I'm a mom, so I'm building my second business around like I need balance. I can't just fly by the seat of my pants, which I definitely did in my coaching business. Like I need more methodical days and processes and steps and processes.
It's like so perfect how you were in that pivot right around when you had him, because it probably made it easier to not work during that 10 months because you were like in this transition. Whereas if you had like a whole roster of clients waiting for you to come back and coach them, it might have been harder to take the 10 months off and not really work.
So it's like the blessing and the curse of like this transition where my husband and I are like, okay, we're starting at rock bottom. We've got a baby. We're building. But I also had so much time to let Embodied like show itself to me more and more.
Which I feel like was so necessary for you to flesh that out. And did you, when you were bringing the method, did you like practice it yourself a lot of times to, you know, get it where you wanted before your first class?
Yeah. It's a labor of love to create a class because it's like I like memorize the music and the movements where it hits the music. Like that's what makes it very experiential. So it's like I create this entire like 50-minute piece. So I definitely practiced it a ton on myself so that I knew when to cue things and when to take things into the next, you know, movement or song or whatnot.
Did you make Gunther do it ever?
He loves it.
I love it. Gunther's her husband.
He has a dance wound for sure, like from a school dance in 8th grade. And he came in and had some serious healing for himself, just being like a man afraid to dance. He like wouldn't dance with me at weddings. And then he takes Embodied and he's reaching for his life, like opening his heart. And he's like, this feels so good. I'm like, good, because it's typically women that come to my class, but like when men actually let themselves feel that way, it's a whole new
I bet because a lot
caliber.
More than women, men struggle to dance and let themselves go. I watched that at the event last week. They do every break. They play music right before you come back and everybody goes up and dances.
Cool.
And it's funny to watch women versus men. The men are just like barely like swaying. They really struggle with it. So that's cool. I love that he did that.
Yeah, I think I need to do like an all men's class and just be like,
you should.
We're all going to get in the room and we're going to get deep. Let's go.
And I feel like if there was like a lot of them, they probably would do it easier. If it wasn't, if you're like the only guy with a bunch of women, I could see how that's more intimidating.
Yeah, but no, he's been a great support and it's been fun that it's touched him as well. So that has made it a very full circle.
Yeah. And I adore you too. So, he pivoted his business. You pivoted your business. You just said, you know, my partner and I were like, okay, we're, you know, starting over, rock bottom type of.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you navigate that?
We're still navigating it.
Yeah.
Like very much. And I think it's this faith in the unknown that we're really living in because it's very easy to get into lack and into scarcity and to make decisions that are quick hits that like veer you off from your path. And I think sometimes, you know, you can have some supplemental stuff coming in to support the vision. But I also think that both of us have such clear missions. It's a matter of just like, how have we been afraid to show up 100% in our missions? Because that's what life is asking for us right now is like, what have we not done, have been afraid of? What is like, we're playing it small. Like, how can we go all in on our visions? Because I know that both of us are very talented, very purpose-driven, put here to do these big things. I think that like life is putting us in a circumstance to be like, okay.
And you have no other option.
Truly.
But to do that. Yeah.
Truly. Because I found myself like lingering in like, oh, I need to get a corporate job and I need to like go back on all these things so that I can supplement and do all of that. And I'm keeping my mind open to things that come to me, but I'm also like going all in on showing up more than I ever have, trusting that whatever comes to me, whether it be something directly for my business or something supplemental, it's going to be on purpose instead of like clinging to control of like, I'm scared. I'm going to take something toxic and unaligned, misaligned so that I'm like, okay, right now, like everything, I think we've just gotten to a point in our lives where it's like, we can't be misaligned anymore. Like once you're like on an alignment path, misalignment feels like that much stronger. And if you're trying to catapult a mission forward, like you got to stay on that train.
Yeah. And I think it also gives you the opportunity to build this from a place that's not about the money. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I see entrepreneurs go through phases in different ways where they like shut down a business, they get burnt out or whatever, yeah. They rebuild a new business. And eventually you get to a place where you build something beyond the money, because you make the decisions like you're making right now of like, we don't just say yes to something because we need the money, but it's in alignment with the purpose and with the mission. And I think that's really common. It's like oftentimes you start a business with the main goal being money in the very beginning. I know for me, that was like my main goal. New baby, got to make money. And then once you do make money and you figure things out and you go on the journey and you create the experience, now you have contrast around what is in alignment, what is not. Like, what am I actually doing?
Right.
And I feel like that's a little bit of where you're at. Like, anytime you rebuild, it's like, okay, now we get to rebuild from a whole different foundation, which is super cool.
Totally. And this is making me think, I had a mentor for a while. I did some intuitive work for a couple of years, and she was like an intuitive. And I remember her telling me, when you and Gunther have your child, he's going to be the best business coach you've ever hired. Period. She's like, everything that you guys have thought you needed to find through mentors and courses, like, you're going to find through him being with you in the world. And like, that has never been like a more true statement, is that he is teaching us like, okay, we have to make some really like adult decisions and also build a structurally sound business. Because I almost feel opposite. Like, I kind of feel like Gunther and I got into what we're doing because we love it. And so we stay in the love part of it. And then we're like, and we need to build the foundation of finances so that it can sustain and build and grow, because like money allows for your mission to reach more people. Like, that's actually like the support of the impact. Money allows that to happen. And so I think for us, it's like really teaching us how to build better businesses.
Yeah. With the passion being part of it, but make sure it creates the money that allows you to continue to have the impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is also such a beautiful part of knowing you'll be okay no matter what, like going through those experiences, which I think every entrepreneur goes through in its seasons, like even at the high levels. You know, I've been where I'm making a lot of money on the top and not a lot of money on the bottom. And like, you have to sit with, am I okay with who I am and my family? And like, if I lost it all, would I be okay? Yep. All right. You know, and I think that's, you don't like make it and then you've made it forever in terms of success and money. And so you go through these seasons and cycles where I think it just allows you to be even more rooted and stronger in who you are outside of money and success, and really like what matters, which is, are you in integrity with yourself and your family and your heart, you know, and as long as that's in alignment, you can build something incredible. But when that's out of alignment, eventually it's like a house of cards. And I say this all the time with entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Explain that a little bit more.
When the focus is the money, right? And then like my experience has been like when I started my business and then I hit the first like $1 million, my very non-experienced perception of this was like, oh, like I'll be good forever.
Got it.
You know, like I've made it. And then this was years ago, and you know, the revenue went down, but the payroll expense was still there. And you have to like come up against yourself with, would I be okay if I lost it all?
Yeah.
And like, what are my actual values and why am I actually doing this? And that builds, I think, resilience for the next level. And if you don't in those situations really come back to what's like the most important, like if you've lost track of why you're even doing it. And you see this a lot in the coaching, right? Where it's like the businesses that were here 2 years ago and are completely gone today. That's the like house of cards, I think, is because there was no mission. There was no connection back to themselves. There was, you got to be so rooted in yourself that you know you'll be okay no matter what to go to that next level. And I think like, especially in the online space, there's just a lot of, you're always having to build a capacity for the next thing. And then it builds your foundation. So for me, like over the last, I don't even know, like since Ella was born, I always like everything's based off like the kids' timeline, but like last 8 years, there's been plenty of cycles of good and bad in a different way. Like top line revenue is good, but then again, some months or quarters, the bottom line is low and I'm the breadwinner. And so there's the pressure. And so it's actually the same pressure that you're experiencing now.
Totally.
On paper, it's like, oh, but you've got a multi-million-dollar company. But
Right.
but the pressure is, well, I also have 18, employees to pay and make sure they can feed their families, plus my own family. And so you're sitting with the same thing of, why am I doing this? Like, what are my values?
Yeah.
And I know I'll be okay no matter what.
Totally.
And if I don't know I'll be okay no matter what, like that has to be addressed before we can get through this. And I mean, it's also, I think, business and your life, but business is the biggest personal development journey you could ever go on.
For sure.
Because you get to those hard seasons, or like, I don't even want to say hard, like you just get to those seasons where there's a challenge and you have to become the person who's overcome that challenge.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of intention and energy.
And also believing, like, what I'm like hearing and pulling on the threads is that, like, no matter what level, no matter what income, no matter like what success or exposure you have, like this similar difficulties and energies are at every level. So it's not like, oh, I'm doing so well and then I'm at this new place and I'm never going to feel that again. It's just going to come in a different suit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who has really made such a powerful, amazing, explosive business. And it's like kind of in my lane. And I admire her so much. And she like broke down crying to me on the phone, feeling a very similar energy of what I'm feeling in just a different way.
Exactly.
And it was so clarifying for me. I'm like, that never goes away.
Exactly. It never
goes away.
You'll have seasons where it's less or you don't feel it much, but it never goes away.
Yeah. You're just a little bit of a different version when you deal with it, but you're also dealing with different levels.
So you build capacity.
Correct.
That's what I think. Is like you build capacity. So you have to go through those things so that you have the capacity for the next level.
Yes.
And that's how I see it now. Like when I'm in a challenging season, it's like, okay, it's pushing me into a place where I build the capacity and the skill and the mindset and the beliefs and the thoughts to overcome this and be at the next level. Like I think challenge now is such a gift.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, yeah. And don't resist it. Just like, all right.
Totally.
Who do I have to become to overcome that challenge?
Well, and that's like, I feel like so much of like what motherhood has done for me from a capacity standpoint is like showing me how much I can hold at once and not crumble or die. Right? It's just like, we're constantly learning how much we can actually hold. And then we have to sink into that a little bit, so we don't crumble. But like, it's always expanding our reach, our capacity, and our trust in ourselves, because we have to trust that we can hold more. I've been like sitting with this conversation that a friend of mine and I had, and she was like, I don't think that people are actually afraid of failure. I think people are afraid of their power because of like, the capacity of holding more means X, Y, and Z. Are you able to hold that and not crumble? Right? And it's not like, oh, I'm going to fail. It's like, no, holding more just means that you're going to be asked to hold more and be more and stay there. And that feels uncomfortable to people way more than the discomfort of failing. You just fail and you get back up. But like, to actually be in your power and to hold all of that is like a way bigger ask.
Right. Yeah. And as you were saying that, with motherhood, it's the same as like you have one kid that builds your capacity. Now you can have two. It's like the first kid you have, you can't even imagine having a toddler and a baby, but somehow you do it. And through that, the only way to build the capacity is through experience, which comes back to appreciating the process, appreciating the journey. Like so much of even now how I look at my CrossFit training and my business and anything that I put my mind to and I decide is a priority is like, I'm actually doing it for the process and the journey and not the finish line. And I used to do everything for the finish line.
Totally.
Then your identity is wrapped in, I have to get to that finish line to be whatever, X, Y, Z. And I think I knew that I was doing things from a healthy place when I could appreciate the journey no matter the outcome.
Well, and I think that positions you differently in the way you experience life, because when you're looking at, like I call it the life ladder, when you're looking at the finish line, by the time you're at the finish line, you're already looking at the next thing. You don't even give a shit that you're at the finish line. So instead, you're actually like savoring the present moment. You're inside the stretching and you're feeling the goodness that it feels to be like, oh, I got a really shitty night of sleep last night and I was still able to show up on a podcast today.
Yeah.
Me currently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that when you can find that sweetness in the present, then there is no destination because you're always becoming.
Yeah, I said this to Michelle, our friend, and we had dinner the other day, and I was like, the more I, do work and go through the journey, the more I realize it's just about being in the present moment as much as you possibly can.
Totally.
Like that is the full experience of the present moment, whatever that is, and just being present with it without judgment.
Yep.
Like that is, that it's taken me so long to even get there. And I find myself today, like driving and being like, okay, I'm going to take 3 breaths and just be in the present moment. I'm just going to notice. I did it this morning. I was taking Willie to preschool. He had to go tell my neighbor something. And I rolled the window down. Instead of like going on my phone while I went to tell the neighbor, I just looked outside and was like, I'm present. I'm here right now in this moment. And that's like my daily right now. How do I feel right now in the present moment? Just it is.
And not filling moments with grabbing the phone.
Right.
Like it's such a habit now to have every moment filled with thought or dopamine hit that we forget how to be present. And I think that then presence starts to feel uncomfortable. And that's why people like stray away from it. And I think the phone specifically, like for us, especially like if we're putting Sully to bed, I'm like, do not bring your phone up there. Like when he falls asleep or when you're in there, just be in the darkness. What a gift to be in silent darkness for 10 minutes.
It's amazing how challenging it can be to do that.
So hard.
Yeah.
But it's like the gateway of meditation. It's the gateway of experiencing life instead of like pretending to live it.
Truly. And it's an intentional daily choice is to be in the present and to not let your environment dictate your day.
Oof.
Most people live in where it's their environment is telling them how to respond. The email, the social media, the phone, the kids. Yeah. The more I Joe calls it like taming the animal, right? You're taming the animal to be like, no, this is how like you're gonna leave that phone over there and you're gonna walk out there and you're gonna not touch it for 20 minutes. And I just resonate to that so much because I have a strong willpower, right? So then when you look at it as like you are not actually your body. Yeah. Our body is a vessel and is the subconscious mind and has so much information, but we don't have to just like respond to all of this chemicals and things around us. We can actually overcome it. Yeah.
Because it's rebellious.
Yeah.
Right? It always tries to be rebellious and like, but what if we just do it once?
Yeah.
And you have to kind of like pull in that inner teacher guide to come back to center over and over and over again. And it comes back to just like repetition.
Yeah.
Building the reps, building the muscle so that it becomes a second nature.
Yeah. And I commented on your post where you said the no complaining challenge.
Yeah.
Love that. And I think that is a reframe I'll share too, is like anything that, like if you're like, oh, I have this problem. I always look at social media when I'm putting my kid to sleep, or I have this problem, in the business that, I'm not, the payments are failing, whatever. And instead of it being a problem that you can complain about, that's so much easier to do that, right? Like so much more fun sometimes to be like, you're not going to believe this thing that happened today, this person. And instead say, I have this challenge.
Yeah.
I get to overcome this challenge. And the thing is, especially entrepreneurs, but I think, a lot of people, if we're faced with a challenge, we're like, oh, let's go. Totally. Like, we're going to overcome this. It's a challenge. It's just such a different energy than a problem.
Yeah.
And that for me was last week that I had that reframe. And so I'll share this quick story. I was telling Peter this morning. I have this current situation with an employee that was making me mad yesterday. And sometimes when I get mad, I'll be like, I just want them to feel how mad I am. Like, I want them to feel how dumb that decision was. And like, there's this energy to it, right? And that's essentially me just giving away my energy to them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, instead of it being a problem, this is a challenge that we get to solve and learn from. And I went into meditation last night and I was like, I will not get up from this meditation until I feel love for that person.
Ooh.
Like, you cannot get out of this. And I went into it like so mad. Like, I was like, what an idiot to, like, you know, human. And I'm like, okay, it's a 48-minute meditation. And if you're still mad at them at the end, you have to sit here until you actually feel gratitude and love for them.
Wow.
It took like 5 minutes. And I was just like, oh, they're trying their best. Like, it just totally changed my mindset. And then the crazy thing is, it caused me to, like, I end the meditation. There's a message because the situation's happening. And I say, you know, thanks so much for all your work on this. I know it's a stressful thing for everybody. Like, that was my risk, because now I'm coming from a place of love. And they stayed up late last night. I wake up to a message that the problem's solved. And it was like 10 p.m. Right? And so I'm like, okay, that was easy. All I had to do was, it felt better for me to respond to that person in the moment and be like, yeah, I'm so mad and disappointed, you know, blah, blah, blah. But all I had to do was say, okay, you're going to sit down. You're not going to get up till you feel that. And then it changed their behavior.
Truly.
So that's my new strategy.
Wow. And what do you feel like allowed for that to happen so quickly for you? Like, what was the shift or like the point that you started kind of like reframing it and actually feeling the real belief of that?
Yeah. So in the meditation, it was partly there was tuning into your heart. So I did that. And I really just had myself recognize the effort they were putting into it. And it wasn't like, it was easy for me to then be like, obviously they don't want to mess up and they don't want this stressful situation either. Yeah. They are doing their best. That's a fact. And so I can have compassion and still set standards, but have compassion. And so it was like, I think I just pulled myself out of that moment of like, I'm right and this is how it should be, and took a step back and saw it from a different lens. And I think like if I can stay in that place, and that's where I've been since coming back from the event, is like, I can't even hate someone right now and be mad. Like, I don't have it in me. Yeah.
Well, like Marianne Williamson in her book, Return to Love, she said that there's literally just 2 frequencies that exist in the world when you categorize them, bring them all down, and it's love and fear. And you're always going toward one. But love always is the thing that's going to bring you what you actually want to feel. Yet so much of our reactivity and our responses are coming from this like fear, because the undertone is like, they're going to mess up something in me, something with my business. I'm afraid that things are going to crumble and I'm going to have to deal with it, when instead they needed to be seen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And where our body is programmed to respond to lack and to that fear. It's like,
totally,
I don't have that thing, and so now I need to take these actions to get this thing, or you know, we're literally programmed to be playing the worst case scenarios so that they don't happen. That's like the job of our body, but it's not reality. And then when you focus on that, your energy goes to the worst case scenario instead of like, wait, what if there's a possibility where this whole situation was solved last night and all I had to do was give some encouragement, which is what happened.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful like lesson. It's like option 3.
Yeah.
What if there's an option where it all works out just fine?
And there always is. Like, but we, at least me, like, I'd be like, no, this is how it is. This is the fact. This is the bad part of this is the situation. It's like, no, but what if that isn't how it has to happen? And it's as simple as your perspective and energetic shift. That's it. And how you see the situation. Yeah. Because we're all perceiving reality in our own way, and also not perceiving reality. Like, there's so much that we can't even see and take in. Yeah.
And I would say that your commitment to being in your heart space through doing all these meditations makes it easier for you to access the frequency of love and like that decision.
Yeah. And I'm so committed to staying there, because I'm like, life is so much better here.
Oh,
like you're like driving, you're like, open your heart, you go, it's fine.
Go ahead, you cut me off, it's fine.
Like, it's So it's like you can spend so much time, especially today. I think people are just so mad at each other.
For sure.
Just like, you're an idiot and you're an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about. And prior to last week, I would have, to be honest with you, like had conversations with Peter. I'd be like, there's a lot of stupid people in this world, you know? And it's like, but what if everybody's doing their best and is hurting in some way? And by thinking that way, you're only taking away from your own power and your own energy.
100%.
And to run a company from that place and have a team, especially from someone who struggles with that, like I've got a fire in me, I think it's going to be pretty life-changing. So,
well, clearly embodied marketing is like getting deeper and deeper into the embodiment of heart-led leader. So that's beautiful.
Where should everybody go if they would love to learn more about Embodied and the app coming out?
Yeah, the app, stay tuned. I feel like just find me on Instagram. That's the easiest. I'm sure you can link it in the show notes, but at Nikki Norenberg. And then I'll be launching kind of a soft launch to my app, most likely in June. And on the app, you'll find those moving meditations and you'll find some of the classes you can take virtually. Otherwise, I teach pretty much twice a week in Austin live.
Yeah, and highly recommend her class. I have lots of friends who go to that class and love it. I got to get there.
Yes.
I will get there.
Yes.
But I love your work, of course. Thank you so much for today.
Thanks for having me.